we came into this year saying this picture is so crowded, referring to the AFC. So many teams have a chance to make it. Every team, with a couple exceptions, thinks they want to make it, like that's their kind of right, is to have a playoff spot. But there are so many good teams. How can this possibly work itself out? And you look at the landscape now, it is actually in 4 weeks morphed into the exact opposite, where there are open spots and no one wants them, like based on injuries or how teams have played so far. So like if we plug in some order, Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, and that's in no particular order, into the first 3 seeds in the playoffs, with the idea that Buffalo beat Miami, and that's why Buffalo gets that spot instead of Miami. So 1, 2, 3 in some order: Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore. Miami as the 5. And we're going to have a really fun conversation about them when we get to playoffs and stuff, because like the second AFC East team is going to be that nightmare Dallas type 5 team last year that like you don't want to play. Like they're going to play the AFC South winner probably in the first. Like you almost already know that, whoever that team is. And so
be favored by at least a field goal, right, on the road, at least.
Then, oh, by the way, that means if you're the 1 seed and you get the bye, awesome, you have a week off. Also, now you get like Buffalo in the second round going to your place instead of a way better team. So like, it's not better to be the 2. You want the week off, but like, is it great to be the 1? Anyway, that wasn't the point of this, but it was really fun. Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, 1, 2, 3 in some order. Miami 5. The South winner will be the 4, and you can put in whoever you want. That division's actually so fun to talk about too. Like who's going to win it? It could literally be all 4 teams. Yep. Okay, who's 6 and who's 7? And my point in asking this, just in case we run into the break, is it one of these teams? Is it both of these teams? Is actually going to be the answer to that question. Because like, here are your teams. Like we're going to hit the break, but here are the teams like in just playoff odds. Kansas City, Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore have the longest or the shortest playoff odds by far to make the playoffs. The next 5 teams: Cleveland, hurt Deshaun; Jacksonville, Cincinnati, the Chargers, Tennessee. Then next few: Pittsburgh, Pickett's hurt; Houston, Indianapolis. Then the Patriots at like 5-1. Who's the 6? Who's the 7?
God have mercy on my soul.
You're gonna
I think
say
the Chargers are getting in. The Chargers.
And boy, that's never burned anyone before thinking that. Boy, that's never really been a problem.
I think the bye week coming early is extremely important for this team. They still have a ton of talent. Now, when they get to the playoffs, they could kind of like urinate all over themselves like they did against the Jaguars in the wild card round last year. But I do think it'll be the Chargers. I think I would actually go with the Browns if I had to pick another team also, and the bye coming at a really opportune time for Cleveland. Now, assuming Watson's going to be healthy coming out of the bye, like we'll see, like how the reports are with Watson and his health, with his throwing arm and his shoulder. What do you think, though, as far as like the final couple wild card spots in the AFC right now?
A crazy kind of half-baked theory I have is that I think the AFC South could get 3 teams in the playoffs this year, like pretty easily. I think that could actually happen. The bottom of the AFC, like the Jets are, look, maybe this turns around or whatever, but like if he's going to keep starting at quarterback, let's agree on this. Even if you thought he looked awesome last night, it at least puts like a pretty hard cap on how good they can be and like how many games they can probably win if Zach Wilson's going to start every game. So maybe you think they get back. The Jets, by the way, longest odds on the board to make the playoffs in the entire AFC right now of all teams. The Jets are viewed as the ones least likely to make the playoffs. I'll ask you this question: if you had to pick a team, the number 1 pick in the I'm sure they won't make the AFC playoffs draft, who would be the number 1 pick?
The Raiders.
Absolutely, I totally agree. By the way, just hint, their win total still not adjusted from last week everywhere. 6.5 plus to the under. Got that about 15 different places already today.
In a related story, they are currently underdogs on Monday Night Football at home next week to the Green Bay Packers. Now, like Garoppolo, as we're doing the show right now, is still not cleared concussion protocol.
Yeah, he'll come back.
And I think like the betting market knows that. Like I think this is a Jimmy Garoppolo number. This is not like an in-between number or an Aiden O'Connell number. Like this is a Jimmy G number, right?
Yeah. It's a Jimmy G number, and the Packers are getting bet against. And Devontae Adams got hurt yesterday, and like I won't use the term that he used, but like played through his injury to the finish line. But not 100% coming into the game this week. Revenge game, by the way, for him. Or maybe it's like a take me back game, honestly. So I agree with you on the Raiders. Who would your second pick be?
It's a great question. It can't be any of the teams in the AFC South, only because I guess like I could like pick a horse and say I think this is the worst team of the bunch. But like I think you're 100% right. You can make a case for any of these teams.
A big part of this exercise for me. So first of all, why are we bringing this up now? The Titans and Colts are playing. This game might end up being insanely important at the end of the year in terms of who makes it and who doesn't. And I don't think people think about that game that way because they think of all these other big teams. The schedule is like the most important thing here, though. You really like the Chargers. I think it's possible the Chargers are good. Out of their bye, first 2 games, home Dallas at Kansas City. Like brutal schedule the rest of the season. Cincinnati. Brutal schedule after the bye coming up in a couple weeks. Patriots, Jets, brutal schedules. We went over this before the year. The AFC South teams all have the cheat code. They play each other and they play the NFC South, which nobody else does. They all have the easy schedules. I'll read you Houston's schedule. I don't even know where the losses are. Think about the AFC schedules. I don't know where the wins are.
Can we do win-loss? Can we do win-loss? Do you have it?
At Atlanta. We'll do Houston right now. At Atlanta.
Win.
Home Saints.
You take Derek Carr, I'll take CJ Stroud. Win.
Off a bye at Carolina.
Maybe Bryce is better. Win. Right now, win. They're 5-2.
Home Tampa. They play all 4 NFC South teams in a row, by the way.
They could lose to Tampa.
Sure, but they're hosting the game. Here's a really funny one.
Favored.
Week 10. Long time from now. Week 10. At Cincinnati.
Yeah, that could be Jake Browning.
Home Arizona.
At that point, maybe it's Kyler. Difficult to kind of say, right?
Think about what we're saying, though.
Correct.
We're doing at that point, maybe it's Kyler. Meanwhile, the Chargers got to go to Arrowhead. It's not even close. Real quick, rest of the games. Home Jacksonville. Home Denver. At the Jets. At Tennessee. They play Tennessee twice in 3 weeks. They got the Colts in there again. Texans could win 13 games. They're not even that good. The AFC South has the cheat code. I think they might get 3 teams in. I really do.
I think we should bet Indianapolis on Sunday.
I think I might bet both teams to make the playoffs. The market moved heavily towards the Jets at the end of the week against the Chiefs, and the market moved against Denver. Money coming in on Chicago on the day of the game. So that goes into my projection. That's the market really, really, really liked the Broncos less than I thought and liked the Jets more than I thought in those 2 games. And that's part of the computation of this number. So I kind of think 2.5 is probably the right number in the game. Broncos 2.5. And to be fair, it's not even 2.5 in most places. The Broncos are 2 in some places. They are 1.5 in some other places. I don't have a strong opinion on something I'd want to do yet. I don't have a strong opinion on the total. I can like Zach Wilson in that game last night and also understand going on the road and playing in Denver and playing well might be different, even if Denver's defense is bad. Just can we see it in a road, him managing a game effectively on the road? Seems like it might be pretty tough in that situation. So I don't think this is all of a sudden the Jets' problems are fixed because Wilson looked really good last night. I would kind of shy away from that opinion. Jets teasers will be something we'll consider this week. I don't know if I want to put Zach Wilson in a teaser leg. It just doesn't sound like a great idea to me. But, so far, thinking about Jets teasers, I don't really have a whole lot kind of cooking in this game.
I hate to say this, and I could definitely, and I'm not saying this with certitude, just that Zach Wilson last night on Sunday night, and he could be terrible. Obviously, we've seen him be terrible a lot more than we've seen him be decent. Even decent. He was good last night though. If Wilson can be even close to what he was on Sunday night, he also took accountability after the game, and obviously the big social media clip was Wilson kind of mouthing to one of his teammates I cost us the game after the fumbled center exchange. He went up there in front of the media and took responsibility for the loss. Compare and contrast that with last year when Wilson basically said whatever, I'm not really to blame, and the defense got furious and they ended up having to bench him because of it. After the second Patriots game, we're hey, do you think are you upset with whatever the question was, and his really lacking self-awareness quote. Now he's pretty aware, and it seems like he's grown as a leader. Now this is all narrative-y. This does not have to translate to good on-field performance, just that maybe he's becoming something a little different now. And I don't think there can be any question, Ken. Like, we've said, like, the Broncos-Bears game, the best unit on the field was the Denver offense. The best unit on the field in this game is the Jets defense.
Yeah,
is definitely the Jets defense. And if Zach Wilson is what he was on Sunday Night Football against Kansas City, the Jets offense is the second best unit on the field on Sunday. And you get them as dogs. I'm going to end up betting the Jets in some way. I haven't yet. I don't know if that's going to be a teaser. I don't know. I may just bet the money line. But I'll be on the Jets on Sunday on the road in Denver for sure in some way.
Kenny Pickett suffered a bone bruise in his knee that could lead to a short-term absence. The door is open for Pickett, who also has a muscle strain to play this week against the Ravens, and the Steelers are at home. But the team may be smart with a bye in week 6, which is obviously next week. So the market, Whale, seems to kind of be shaped around this is probably a Mitch Trubisky start for Pittsburgh, a 4.5, 5-point underdog at home against Baltimore, who looked really good last week. Also, they were playing Dorian Thompson-Robinson. What do you make of this market? Like, how do you think it's going to kind of move as we find out if it's Trubisky or Pickett? Do you like anything in this game? So Ravens 4.5 on the road, very low total as we've seen with these teams historically, 38.5.
Yeah. I obviously was pretty high on Steelers coming into the season. It was a flag planting in that team just on the guess that if they surprised to the good offensively, then that was the type of roster that could make some noise in the AFC. And I got to tell you, having watched the Steelers now every week for 4 weeks, this offense is just abominable. I think the idea of Trubisky in for Pickett could be viewed as addition by subtraction. I don't know what's going on with Pickett. The game's obviously not slowing down for him in his sophomore season. Some of that may be on Matt Canada. Some of that may be injury related in terms of some of the hits Pickett took in week 1. But I think he could use a break. I think that Trubisky in here gives you a much higher floor for this offense. And while the ceiling all of a sudden is, maybe they can win 9 games this season, I don't think anyone can realistically expect the Steelers are going to be in the mix for a playoff spot in this very, very challenging AFC. So that said, I think if I knew Trubisky for sure was going to go, and again, a couple of the other guys who, got knocked out of the game, Dan Moore Jr., a good example, like that, like everybody that got knocked out is kind of addition by subtraction, in my opinion. So the Steelers, I think, could actually match up fairly well against a Ravens team that lost another backfill at the cornerback position. Outside of Roquan Smith just doesn't really have a lot going on defensively that gets me that excited here. So this is a hold your noser, and I haven't bet it yet, but I think Steelers plus the points is probably the side. And I think the Ravens, as flattering as the 28-3 win can be, like, that offense really just didn't feel like they were, going at full speed. And I know that the Browns defense is incredible, but, I think, just because it's a little bit one-dimensional, Steelers can match up fairly well against them. So I think this is probably in the end a 3-point game with the Ravens ought to be, small favorites here. But if Trubisky's going to go, I'm going to take the points.